Honourable Minister of National Defence and Minister for Multiculturalism.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, to you and members of the committee for their participation in this important debate about Canada's ongoing and forward-leaning leadership role in supporting the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine against the aggression planned and executed by Russian President Vladimir Putin in his support of violent extremists who are responsible for the loss of thousands of lives in Ukraine over the past many months, including, Mr. Chairman, the Government of Canada believes that the ultimate responsibility for the terrible crime and disaster of the Malaysian Airlines flight being shot down over eastern Ukrainian territory rests with the Kremlin, rests with President Putin. And we join with all free and civilized peoples in demanding accountability for that terrible crime, Mr. Speaker. I am pleased to contribute to this important debate concerning our ongoing response, as I've said.
When Russia launched its attack against Ukraine in February of last year, beginning with an illegal occupation of Crimea, Canada immediately showed solidarity to the Ukrainian people. We will continue to act that way today.
Clear quotes, Canada continues to stand with the people of Ukraine in the face of the Putin regime's ongoing aggression. And as he said face-à-face to President Putin at the margins of the G20 summit in Melbourne last fall, I will shake your hand just so that I can tell you that you need to get out of Ukraine now. Hear, hear.
On April 13th, the Prime Minister and the Chief of the Defence Staff, General Lawson, and myself announced support to reinforce Ukraine's self-defense, which will start later this year. This adds to the efforts that the Department of National Defense has already offered to Ukraine. Instruction will take place in western Ukraine, particularly at the NATO Center for Training at Yavoriv. And I would add, Mr. Chair, that Canada and the United States have helped Ukraine with the construction of this training center a couple of years ago. And there will also be the Ukrainian National Defense Ministry will be moving to southwest Ukraine, and there will be training for improvised explosive devices.
Contribution will consist of approximately 200 personnel that will provide training assistance until March 21st, 2017. That is the decision of the government, of course. A government at that time will make a decision as to whether or not to expand or extend the training mission. It will do so in the fields of individual and unit tactics training, which most lay people would understand as conventional military training. Secondly, military police skills and procedures. Thirdly, explosive ordnance disposal. Fourthly, flight safety training, combat first aid, and logistics system modernization. Now, let me assure you, Mr. Speaker, that the Canadian Armed Forces will not only train units from the Canadian Armed Forces will only train units from the Ukrainian Armed Forces, not from individual militias, contrary to some inaccurate media reports in the Ottawa Citizen.
We will work in close cooperation with Ukraine's Ministry of the Interior, which will undertake a full investigation into everyone who participates in this training. We will also continue to share satellite imagery and intelligence with the Ukrainian government so that they can remain aware of the situation.
Imagery with Ukraine has no negative effect on Canada's ability to use RadarSat-2 for supporting the defence and security of Canada, again, contrary to inaccurate and misleading reports that appeared in the Ottawa Citizen. And I should point out, Mr. Speaker, that when President Petro Poroshenko visited us in Ottawa last autumn, his number one ask of Canada was the sharing of these RadarSat images to assist Ukraine in having a better situational understanding of the Russian threat posed within their own territory. And I'm pleased to say that within days of becoming Minister of National Defense, we signed a Memorandum of Understanding and began sharing those images on a regular basis, and they have been enormously helpful to the Ukrainians.
Hear, hear.
Canada's contribution has been fully coordinated and synchronized with the efforts of the United States in the region through the United States-Ukraine Joint Commission. This support to the Ukrainian people exemplifies Canada's commitment to work with our international allies and partners to help build Ukraine's capacity and to preserve and promote a free, democratic, and peaceful region. We are helping Ukraine with the resources available. This past August, Canada provided non-lethal military supplies to Ukraine, including a range of targeted protection, medical and logistical equipment, such as 7,000 helmets, 30,000 sets of ballistic eyewear, 2,300 protective vests, 300 first aid kits, 100 tents, and 735 sleeping bags. When he spoke to this very place, where you're sitting, Mr. Speaker, this past September, President Poroshenko said, and I quote, "As a commander-in-chief, as a Ukrainian, and as a father of a soldier, I thank Canada for each life that it has saved today in the Ukrainian Donbass by the helmets and bulletproof vests you gave us," unquote. Since that time, we've made further commitments. Canada committed to a further contribution of non-lethal military supplies. From that commitment, Canada has delivered 30,000 coats, 70,000 Gore-Tex boots and other equipment. And I've been told by Ukrainians who have contact with the troops that this Canadian equipment was throughout the last winter the most desired equipment in the Ukrainian military. In fact, it became known as Kanadki, basically Canadian wear, a very popular expression of solidarity. Once manufacturing is finalized, Canada will also be sending 22 Harris high-frequency radios, 238 pairs of PVS-7 night vision goggles, 1,100 tactical medical kits, a mobile field hospital structure, and a yet-to-be-determined amount of explosive ordnance disposal equipment. And let me add a word of appreciation for the enormous contributions made charitably by Canadians, many but not all, of the Canadian-Ukrainian community who have contributed millions of dollars to support first aid kits and indeed medical doctors who have flown to Ukraine to act as medical volunteers. We salute them for their contribution, Mr. Speaker.
Along with this commitment, the government announced in January of last year a contribution of over $575 million to help Ukraine. This funding includes initiatives to promote stability and economic growth, to strengthen security, and to promote civil society. And I would add, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chair, that Ukraine is the only country in Europe with which Canada has a humanitarian aid development program. In August 2014, we provided military equipment, non-lethal equipment to Ukraine, such as ballistic protection, helmets, and other equipment, and we have committed to providing further equipment.
Signed a declaration of intent with Ukraine for joint military training and capacity building in response to Russia's belligerence. And in January, we formalized the provision of military assistance to Ukraine by joining the U.S.-Ukraine Joint Commission and agreeing to co-chair with Ukraine that Commission's military police subcommittee. I'd also like to speak to the strong role that we are playing in NATO assurance measures. We made robust contributions to strengthening security in Central and Eastern Europe by providing $1 million to the NATO Trust Fund for Ukraine with a focus on improving its command, control, communications, and computer capabilities. We've contributed to 3 NATO-accredited centers of excellence in the Baltic region on cyber defense, energy, security, and strategic communications, and, of course, the deployment of Canadian military personnel and assets in Central and Eastern Europe as part of Operation Reassurance, including CF-18s who participated in Baltic air policing patrols, the HMCS Fredericton participating in patrols in the Black Sea, and over 200 Canadian infantrymen who are present in Poland as we speak. Sur terre, l'armée canadienne est déployée en Europe.
The Canadian Army is in Central Europe, as I said, and this is a show of confidence for your Eastern European countries.
All of this constitutes a robust response by Canada. Let there be no doubt, with this further military training operation, that Canada, Canadians, and the Canadian Armed Forces stand side by side, our Ukrainian friends and partners, in sending a message of strength and resolve to a bully in Vladimir Putin, who only understands the language of deterrence. Mr. Speaker, we continue to stand by the people of Ukraine. Merci beaucoup.
Questions and comments? The Honourable Member for St. John's East.
Thank you, Chair, and I want to thank the Minister of Defence for his comments and take this opportunity, since we're focused on the military aspects of Canadian support, just to assure those following this discussion and debate that we in this House and the NDP stand in solidarity with the people of Ukraine and fully support the efforts of the NATO reassurance package that Canada participated in a large way, and acknowledge the support of Canada to the positive support of Canada to the 3 centres of excellence that NATO has in the in the Balkans, as well as our contribution to Baltic air policing and the provision of non-lethal equipment and support to the Ukrainian military. And I'm glad to hear from the Minister that it was much appreciated and recognized as a Canadian contribution by those who received it. I will ask the Minister, though, I'm reliably informed that in order to ensure that the equipment that we're talking about actually got to the place it needed to go, Canada actually had to set up its own supply chain to make sure that happened, partly because of difficulties at the senior level of the Ukrainian military, which has been not my criticism, but criticism of the International Crisis Group and others, that there's problems. Some aid coming from the U.S., for example, ended up on the black market very quickly. So that indicates some serious problems within the military. Is there something that Canada is doing and can do to assist at that level in improving the professionalization of the Ukrainian military?
The Honourable Minister.
I thank Mr. Chairman. I thank the member for his thoughtful question. The answer is yes. There is something we can and should do, and that is incorporated in the training mission. One of the specific training functions will be in logistical training for supply chains and management of inventories. These sound like boring subjects, but in fact, Mr. Speaker, no military operation can be effective without very strong logistical systems, and that's why one of the areas of emphasis in our training operation will be logistics training. I would point out we have not received, we're not aware of any confirmed reports of Canadian equipment in Ukraine going on the black market, but obviously there are concerns in this respect. I would note that President Poroshenko has ordered and led a process of lustration of disloyal members of the Ukrainian Armed Forces and their officer corps to try to remove those who might have been seeking to profiteer from the conflict. And I would actually give credit to my parliamentary secretary on the second large shipment of Canadian equipment to Ukraine. He and a number of civil society volunteers actually participated in tracking the delivery of the equipment directly to Ukrainian troops. So we've done our best to ensure the delivery of the equipment on our part, and we will assist them with logistical training in the future.
The Honourable Member for Winnipeg North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I must say at the onset that I truly appreciate the opportunity that we're having here this evening to talk about what is a very important issue. There's a high level of interest with in excess of 1.2, 1.3 million people of Ukrainian heritage, but also others, Mr. Speaker, that are so much concerned in terms of what's happening in Ukraine and what Russia is and how Russia is intervening unjustifiably against international law into the territory of Ukraine. You know, the benefits that I have been able to derive from the member from the Toronto Centre, my colleague from Wascana, and our foreign affairs critic, has been immense as I try to get a good understanding in terms of what's actually happening in Ukraine. Through my leader, I've had the opportunity to visit and be an observer for both the presidential election and the parliamentary election, which I think has just been a great experience given the representation I think is so critical on debates of this nature. Earlier this year, the Liberal party had asked questions regarding whether or not the government was looking at or considering the possibility of military support. I'd like to again ask a similar question in the sense of, is the government giving any consideration or having any dialogue with the United States or our ally forces in regards to the banking industry in particular with respect to SWID and what might be done in that whole area?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
So I beg the member's indulgence. I wasn't entirely clear on the question, Mr. Speaker, but certainly we will be willing to receive advice from the member and appreciate his support for the training mission.
And comments, the Honourable Member for Provencher. Is that not Ted? Provencher. Sorry, pardon me, Brandon Souris. Pardon me.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I listened intently to the minister's presentation, and I noted that he mentioned the Ottawa Citizen. I'm seeking some clarification. A few weeks ago, the Minister of National Defence claimed that the HMCS Fredericton was flown over by Russian fighter jets while on a NATO mission in the Black Sea. So I just wanted to know if this Ottawa Citizen reporter wrote that no such encounter took place. That's what appeared in the Citizen. So can the minister just provide us with clarification on that issue?
Yeah.
The Honourable Minister.
I thank the member for the question, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I certainly can. The media report to which he refers was wholly and entirely inaccurate. It was repeated by the leader of the Liberal Party in this place a couple of weeks ago. I have here a declassified advisory maritime interaction event report from the commander of the HMCS Fredericton dated 6 March 2015, which indicates that during an underway replenishment at sea, 2 Russian warplanes closed Fredericton's position and operated an airspace in the vicinity of the Fredericton for approximately 30 minutes. The aircraft closed Fredericton's position one at a time at medium altitude, conducting maneuvers to demonstrate they were not carrying weapons. Thereafter, the aircraft continued to operate in the vicinity of Fredericton, flying at low and medium altitudes at distances that range from over top to several miles from Fredericton. The Russian aircraft were not in communication with the Fredericton. And so I'd be happy to table this report, which comes from the commander of the Fredericton and demonstrates the precise veracity of what I said, Mr. Speaker.
Questions or comments? The Honourable Member for Portneuf-Cartier. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And I'd like to thank the Minister for his remarks. We're having a take-note debate, which is very important. It's a first stage in discussing what Canada do to assist Ukraine. However, in the missions in Iraq and Syria, unfortunately, Parliament and the population of Canada has been misled in the past. So I'd like to know, what will the minister do to make sure that the Canadian public is well informed about what our military is doing in terms of troop deployment, and how will be informed on the progress in the future? So could the minister tell us how he is going to keep us up to date on developments? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Chairman, we have taken action against groups in Syria and Iraq, and we have been probably more transparent than other countries, many other countries. We have put on our website what we've been doing in terms of what we are targeting in those countries, what we want to do each week, every other week. We have been providing public updates, public briefings, and our Canadian officers have been providing updates. I am perfectly willing to provide similar updates on our training mission with our Ukrainian partners. This will be a very open operation and a very open process. It's no secret, Mr. Chairman, that we are providing similar training in many countries all over the world. This is something that the Canadian Armed Forces are specialized in. That's their expertise. So this is not a secret mission. It's perfectly transparent, and I'll be perfectly happy to share with this House and with the broader public on the progress of our training mission in the Ukraine.
Time for a short